You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet. Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
All right, Miami! Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. Hey, when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. 'Cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Monday, June 3rd. I am your host, Mike Oliva, flying solo today, as we're going to talk about Tyreek Hill on today's show and everything going on around him and him wanting a new contract that is out there in the news. But before we get to any of that, today's show is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey for a gift for Father's Day or a birthday, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? Don't worry. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your own home. And yes, they will ship internationally as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. So before we get into today's show, also a big shout out to everyone listening at FinHeaven.com. Everyone check out FinHeaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please check out the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now. Make sure you don't miss an episode. Okay. Tyreek Hill's in the news. He's been in the news since last week when reports came out that he has been looking for a new contract from the Miami Dolphins since last season ended. Jaylen Waddle got his extension, I believe, last Thursday. That's when that story broke about Tyreek. And then on Monday morning, this morning, Justin Jefferson news broke that he signed a mega deal, 4-year extension, $140 million with $110 million guaranteed. And once that news broke early Monday, everyone started to turn their attention to Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb as they're sort of the next guys in line to get big money type deals, in the neighborhood of what Justin Jefferson got. And then once everyone started to stop talking about them, that's when the conversation turned to Tyreek Hill. Because, as we said last week, once Waddle got his new deal, the reports started coming out from NBC Sports that, excuse me, all the reports came out from NBC Sports that Tyreek's been looking for a new deal. And Tyreek's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, spoke about this with Josh Moser of WSVN. And I'm going to play the clip so we can get it straight from him. And there's no misquoting or anything like that. So here's what Drew Rosenhaus said when asked about this last night.
He was the highest paid receiver when he joined the Dolphins in 2022. It's been back-to-back Pro Bowl years, arguably still the best receiver in the game. But now he's out of the top 5 highest paid. So how much can you push to get him more money, especially now that the Xavier Howard catch is off the books for the Fins?
Let's just say it's safe to acknowledge that I've been in touch with Chris Grier and Brandon Shore of the Dolphins. I certainly have a fluid line of communication with them, and I've shared with them how Tyreek feels. And I'll also reiterate that Tyreek has said that he would love to finish his career here with the Dolphins. So without getting into any more specifics, the Dolphins know how we feel.
Okay, that's straight from Drew Rosenhaus, the agent for Tyreek Hill. And kind of a nothing answer from Drew. Not a lot of meat on the bone there with what he said. Just pretty much voiced that his client wants a new contract and would like to get, that sort of straightened out and worked. There wasn't a lot there. And I think as fans of all professional sports, it doesn't matter if it's the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, hockey, or whatever. Over the years, you've heard these stories so many times of a professional athlete who wants an extension or wants to redo his deal. I think fans have become numb to it to a certain point. We've seen it. We've heard it so many times across all the sports. But honestly, each situation is totally different. And this situation is very unique in its own ways. Because when it comes to contract negotiations, which even though Tyreek is under contract until the end of 2026 season, don't be fooled. He's in contract talks with the Dolphins right now. And his agent just went on television with Josh Moser, as I played, to talk about, they want a new deal, and they have voiced that to the Miami Dolphins. When it comes to contract negotiations, sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail, meaning sometimes the player / and agent has a team over a barrel, and sometimes the team has the player and agent over the barrel. And this is an instance with Tyreek Hill, or the team right now has all the leverage. The team has the player and the agent over the barrel. And I think part of that is this. And I'm going to always, I've been doing this on the past few shows. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see it. I'm doing my Brian Windhurst of ESPN meme type thing. But here's what it is. Here's what I think some Dolphins fans are missing. Here's what I think they're missing. If you're going to label Chris Grier as quote unquote smart by locking up Jaylen Waddle before the Justin Jefferson deal was official, and it was smart by Grier to get that done prior to the Justin Jefferson deal. If you're going to label him smart for that, then if Miami wanted to keep Tyreek long-term and get something done with him, wouldn't it also have been smart to restructure or extend his deal last week, the same time they did Waddle, or anytime this offseason, pretty much any time before today, June 3rd, when this Justin Jefferson deal was announced? Wouldn't that have been smart? Because the smart thing would have been to extend or restructure Tyreek no later than last week. Because on Monday morning, June 3rd, today, the world changed. And Grier isn't stupid, okay? You can love Grier. You can hate Grier. I know a lot of fans have various opinions on Chris Grier. One thing is he ain't stupid. And now to be in talks with Tyreek Hill puts him at a disadvantage with little leverage, when if he, up until last week or up until Sunday even, he had all the leverage. Because now Tyreek Hill can point to that Justin Jefferson deal and say, pay me that or pay me close to that. Where if Chris Grier was talking to Tyreek before today, he could say, we'll give you a small bump, put you up to $32 million, give you up 33. Now Tyreek's pointing at, he wants on average, I think it was $35 million a year, whatever, $110 million guaranteed. And Chris Grier is a smart man who's not going to put himself in a position where he doesn't have the leverage. So to me, the fact Miami has done nothing with Tyreek this entire offseason. Again, they restructured Teron Armstead, who never plays. They restructured Bradley Chubb, who's going to miss half this season. They restructured Jalen Ramsey, who's only been here a year and missed half of last year. They restructured all their big money deals this year. They haven't restructured Tyreek's, and it would have been advantageous to them to restructure Tyreek's back in March when free agency started, to give them more flexibility in free agency. They didn't do it then, and I don't think they're going to do it now. And I think this, how they've handled this so far this offseason, kind of gives you some insight into how Miami views Tyreek moving forward and how they want to manage the cap in the next 24 months or so, roughly. Because I know Tyreek wants a new deal and is probably going nuts seeing players like Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, and stuff that he feels he's equal to, or even in some cases they might be slightly lesser than him, getting paid new money, getting paid big money. And I know his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, is trying to do right by his client, his future Hall of Famer, his client, trying to get him paid again and get him another bite at the apple and trying to get him new money. And so I don't blame them for that. But the Miami Dolphins have zero incentive to do anything with Tyreek Hill right now. This is a business. The NFL is a business, and at times it can be a cruel business. And let's go over Tyreek's cap numbers. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put them on the screen. For those listening in audio, I will read them out. In 2024, Tyreek Hill counts. The cap number is all that matters. So on the screen, you see Tyreek Hill's base salary, prorated signing bonus, roster bonus. That's all nice. The only thing that matters is the cap number. And in 2024, Tyreek Hill on the cap counts $31.32 million. He's eating up 12.2% of Miami Dolphins salary cap. They have no one, which if Justin Jefferson just got this huge payday over $31 million, now Tyreek Hill's deal don't look all that bad for this year. In 2025, though, this is where the world changes. The final 2 years of Tyreek Hill's deal. Because in 2024, Tyreek Hill, out of that $31.32 million, has $19.66 million fully guaranteed. So Miami's not trading Tyreek now, even if they wanted to, which they don't, because they have to win this year. Even if they wanted to, they can't because of the guaranteed money and all that good stuff. In 2025 and 2026, the final 2 years of Tyreek's deal, Tyreek has zero guaranteed money in 2025, zero guaranteed money in 2026. That's where something can happen if they wanted to, which is why when you see people on social media saying this is Tyreek Hill's final year in Miami, I don't know if that's true or not. It's possible because there's no guaranteed money in 2025 and 2026, meaning it's easier to move on from him after this upcoming season. Now, next year in 2025 on the cap, Tyreek Hill will count $34.24 million and eat up 13% of the cap. A hefty number, but considering, well, once again, what Justin Jefferson got paid, what CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase are about to get paid, not wild and crazy anymore, especially if the cap goes up. It's manageable. And if Miami cuts Tyreek after this season, and if they cut him in March of 2025, they will. Now, if it's pre-June 1st, they eat $22.617 million of dead money, but they open up $11.6 million of dead money. If they do a Xavier Howard type deal and cut him post-June 1st next year, then that opens up $22.9 million of salary cap space, and they only eat $11 million. Meaning, after this upcoming season, if Miami cuts Tyreek Hill like they just cut Xavier Howard, on June 1st, 2025, they would get $23 million worth of salary cap space. That's a lot of change. Again, I'm not saying they are going to cut him. I'm saying that's what could happen, and that's why it's being talked about. Now, 2026, this is where the rubber meets the road, because there's how the contract was worked back in 2022 when Miami traded for him. 2026 is all fake numbers. In that, he's going to count on Miami's cap for $56 million. And if the Dolphins cut him either pre-June 1st or post-June 1st, they get $45 million in salary cap space. That is, they are not going to have Tyreek Hill count $56 million on their cap, which means really we're talking about this year, 2024 and 2025 as Tyreek's either his last year in Miami or his last 2 years in Miami, because 2026, how the contract's written now, just is not going to happen. It's just unrealistic in every way, shape, and form. So that's kind of where we are there with the Tyreek Hill numbers. I know it's a lot of numbers I'm sort of tossing out there, but it goes to show that Miami has zero incentive to give Tyreek a long-term deal or even rework his deal now, because, you know, they have him this year at a reasonable number. They'll have him next year at a somewhat reasonable number, but they could easily move on from him after next year if they want. And it leads to the question, will Miami give Tyreek Hill a new deal or a long-term extension? And my answer as of today, June 3rd, based off the information I know and just my educated opinion, I don't think they will. I kind of be surprised if they gave him a new deal or a long-term extension. Because, again, hammer and nail, they don't have to. First off, and let me clear this up, because I saw this a lot out there, Tyreek Hill is not retiring after this contract. Folks, if you take the words that come out of the mouth of Tyreek Hill seriously and, like, literally, you're a fool. And I can't take you serious. Tyreek Hill might have, you know, I know he said he's going to retire. He's going to become a porn star. He's going to do that. Tyreek Hill is not retiring after this contract. Tyreek Hill was just joking around online. He wasn't serious. Don't take him literally. And believe, and when it comes to Tyreek Hill, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. He isn't retiring. This guy's going to play as long as teams are going to pay him 25, 30, 35 million per season. He ain't walking away from that. So even though I don't see Miami sort of reworking his deal in a long-term extension with a bunch of new money, give him like another $100 million of new money on an extension. If Miami does something though, which again, there's no incentive for them to do, they could restructure his deal to put some guaranteed money in 2025. And even if they, I guess possible, put some guaranteed money in 2026 and lower that cap number, that wouldn't shock me, but Miami's in a tough spot right now. And this is what they're looking at, because the reason they're in a tough spot is if you give Tyreek an extension and a raise, is what he wants. He wants an extension and a raise. You're going to keep him in Miami another, 3, 4 years, 5 years, maybe? Well, if you do that, are you okay with letting Jaylen Phillips walk? Are you okay with letting Javon Holland walk? Are you okay letting Tua Tagovailoa walk? Because you cannot keep everybody in this league. You cannot keep everybody, and for every action, there is a reaction. So, you look at this Dolphins roster, and if you give Tyreek another 3 to 5 years with a bunch of new money and a bunch of guaranteed money, you're not going to be able to sign some of those young guys that I know a lot of fans of Dolphins want to keep. And it's going to, change how you can build this roster, moving forward. And I know people just think each year, well, the salary cap's just going to go up at some crazy rate, so it's all going to be fine. Not necessarily. Yes, it might go up incrementally each year. Some years will be up a lot, and some years not as much. It will go up, but not to the point where you can, sign every one of these young guys and have a competent roster. Because what your roster is going to look like if you try to pay Tyreek Hill a new 3 to 5 year extension, and also pay Tua, and also pay Holland, and also pay Jaylen Phillips. What you're going to have is a roster that's filled with a bunch of superstars and then a bunch of rookies. And those middle of the road players that you need, that every team needs. So you're not just counting on, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks to play significant roles as rookies or as second year guys to even start in some cases. If you want to sign the Aaron Brewers of the world, or the Jordan Brooks of the world, or the David Longs of the world, or dare I say the Zach Sealers of the world, if you want to have those guys on your roster, those guys who, maybe not a quote unquote superstar, but above average quality NFL starter, then you can't pay everybody. So it's about, how you want to build this roster moving forward. And I get it. Drew and Tyreek can scream from the rooftops and yell all they want. We deserve more money. This isn't fair. But the team's going to point to, well, we control you through the end of 2026, really through the end of 2025 in reality. And, why should we do anything? And I know when it comes to this stuff, 10 times out of 10, the fans always side with the player. They always side with the player. They just want to watch their favorite team play. They don't care about the future. I like Tyreek Hill. I own a number 10 jersey. I don't want him going nowhere. It's fun when he catches long touchdowns, and I want to watch Tyreek, and that's all I care about. And I get that's the fans' logic 99.9% of the time. But the general manager, his thought process, he's got to be playing chess. He's got to be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of putting together this roster in 2026, 2027, and moving forward, knowing, okay, I give all this money to him. Where's this money coming from? Who has to go so I can pay him? And how do I fill that spot? Because it was just a couple years ago, many of you listening out there, you were screaming when Xavier Howard put up on social media, I believe it was Instagram, saying, I'm at camp. I'm not going to participate. I want the Miami Dolphins to trade me. Dolphins fans lost their minds saying, pay Xavier Howard. What are you doing? We want him in Miami. How can you not pay this man? And Dolphins fans were screaming and cursing out the team, cursing out the organization, sending them nasty tweets, sending them nasty messages on Facebook saying, we must pay Xavier Howard. Fast forward about, 12 to 15 months, those same Dolphins fans are screaming for Miami to cut Xavier Howard. So, the fans are always going to side with the players, but you can't listen. The old saying in football goes, it goes for coaches and it also goes for front office people. If you listen to fans, you'll be sitting with them real soon. And so before you fans, not you, some fans, before you blindly yell in support of the player, try to think about this with putting the logo of the organization above any one player's last name. Because I understand Tyreek Hill's fun to watch. He's going to the Hall of Fame. The best wide receiver in Miami Dolphins history. Yes, he's better than Mark Clayton. He's better than Mark Duper. He's better than Paul Warfield. The best wide receiver in Dolphins history. And it would stink to see him go. But the Dolphins have control of him for 2024 and 2025 in reality, and they don't have to do anything. And I know Tyreek might not be happy, and Tyreek might say stuff in the press over the next year or so if nothing gets done. But it's a business. It's a business, and the Dolphins really have all the leverage right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out moving forward. I don't know. Again, I don't think they're going to give him an extension where he gets like $80 or $90 million of new money. I don't see that happening. I could see Chris Grier and Brandon Shore to try and pacify Tyreek a little bit. Maybe since he has no money that is guaranteed in 2025, making a little bit of that money fully guaranteed, so he has some insurance there. So he'll know for a fact in 2025 he will be a member of the Dolphins. I could see a small move like that, a small gesture, which might not wreck the cap big time moving forward, but is a good faith, goodwill move in some way. I think that's probably all he's going to get. I don't know, though. Maybe there's something in the works that I don't know about or that some other people don't know about, but I just don't see anything big happening here because Chris Grier, like I said, it would have been smart to do anything with Tyreek Hill prior to today. Once that Justin Jefferson deal was announced today, there's really no incentive for Miami to do much here with Tyreek Hill because the world has changed with that Justin Jefferson contract when it comes to wide receivers being paid. And I also say this in closing. There's a lot of moving parts here with this stuff. And I know I didn't talk about it, but we have to address it. I think Tyreek Hill's off the field antics since he's been with the Miami Dolphins, and it's been a lot of headlines with a lot of stuff. How much of it is his fault, not his fault? I don't know, but it's not just one incident or two. There's a lot of incidents. That does play a factor here in how much Miami wants to invest in him long term and a trust factor. Someone like Waddle, just never makes headlines, always does the right thing, always does the right thing off the field and on the field. You never have to worry about Jaylen Waddle embarrassing the organization in any way, shape, or form. You feel safe investing in him long term and investing $76 million of guaranteed money. With Tyreek, it's just been a lot. And I think there's also a bit of exhaustion when it comes to that. If it's one incident, it happens. If it's even two incidents, it happens. When you're on incident like 6 and 7 and 8, and it's just lawsuit after lawsuit after paternity, it's a lot. And I think that does play a small factor here in what may or may not happen with Tyreek Hill in Miami moving forward. But he's under contract through 2026. Really, he's under contract through 2025. So, we'll see if the Dolphins do anything to sort of keep one of their best players happy in the next year or so. All right, before I get to the last topic of the show, I want to just remind everyone that the Jaylen Waddle Youth Football Camp is a place to be this summer. Join the Miami Star on June 22nd in Fort Lauderdale for skill-building fun and memories that will last a lifetime. Visit JaylenWaddleCamp.com and register while spots are still available. Each camper will receive a limited edition T-shirt, souvenir, autograph, and a team photo with Jaylen. Check out JaylenWaddleCamp.com to learn more. That's JaylenWaddleCamp.com. See you on the field. This is open to boys and girls grades 1 through 8. Okay, story on a much, much different note. I saw this out there over the weekend, and it got me thinking. And again, this has just got me thinking. I'm just going to sort of share this. The Las Vegas Raiders, obviously housed in Nevada, are moving their training camp this year to Costa Mesa, California, to avoid the Nevada heat. And it got me thinking, should the Miami Dolphins possibly do something similar? Now, I know that the Miami Dolphins in training camp try to hold their practices early in the morning to avoid the hottest part of the day and beat the heat. So I understand that. But is it wise to hold training camp in South Florida with that type of heat? Because if anyone has ever been down there in the summer months, it is like being under a heat lamp. It is so stinking hot. And I know there's probably some people out there with that old school meathead logic is don't be soft, play in the heat. I remember the 1972 Dolphins. They did 2-a-days in that South Florida heat, and they won. No, I get it, but the world has changed. I mean, it just has. It's just a reality of the situation. And the Raiders feel moving to a place in California in Costa Mesa, the players will be more, not relaxed, but will be able to focus more and get done the work that they need to get done in training camp at a higher level, because it's not going to be having to stop every 5 minutes for a water break type of deal. It's so, it's since that 1972 team and since those days of the 70s in the NFL, we have longer seasons now. The plays become much, much more physical. The athletes are much, they're stronger, they're bigger, they're faster. It's a whole different world. And again, I'm just brainstorming. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. Because the last 2 seasons, looking at the Miami Dolphins, off to quick starts. But in December and January, they fell apart. And I know some of that is because of injuries, but are they sort of not able to hold up through a full season because their bodies are just taking so much of a punishment in August with that South Florida heat? Does the wear and tear that they put on their bodies early in training camp, sort of show up later in the season? Maybe not right away. Does it show up later in the season? Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a trainer. I'm just sort of thinking out loud here because I know the Saints this year are also holding their training camp in California. Now, part of it is they're doing work on their complex and they had to move their training camp. But this is also the 12th time that they've moved their training camp out of Louisiana. And part of it in the past is why are they moving it out of Louisiana? Is because the heat down there is just too much to bear. And I know the Cowboys, they've held their training camps for many years now of late. And in Oxnard, California, again, the Texas heat is one of the reasons there. It's just too dang hot for the players to sort of focus and get through the necessary work they need to get through. And yeah, it's just something I thought about when I heard that about the Raiders, because the Raiders specifically said it's the heat. We just can't do training camp in this heat. It is too damn hot. We need to get out of Nevada and go someplace with a little bit of a cooler climate, someplace with a breeze. So they're going to Costa Mesa, California, and yeah, just something to consider here. Maybe the Dolphins, I understand it's nice to have everything in house, and you got Hard Rock Stadium, and you got the training complex right there. And they spend all this money to have it right under their nose and have everything housed in one location for convenience and all that stuff. I get it. It makes all the sense in the world. But there's also the reality. The past 2 seasons, they've had a lot of injuries, and it's hurt them significantly in December and January, where a lot of those injuries have taken place. Now, I know stuff with the concussions and Tua that could happen at any time. That's got nothing to do with the heat. So let's put that to the side. And I know some things like the injury to Jaylen Phillips and stuff had nothing to do with that. Some of the injuries are fluky and it's nothing to do with heat. But I bet you to a man at the end of the year, those Miami Dolphins players, they're exhausted by December and January. And maybe if they had a training camp somewhere in a cooler climate, move it to West Virginia, move it to South Carolina, move it somewhere where maybe it's hot, no doubt, but not as hot. Maybe, I don't know, it might refresh their bodies and keep them more fresh as they go later into the season. Just a thought, just an idea I had, because I know nothing's hotter than training camp in late July, first part of August. People who go there sweat through their shirts. I mean, it is hot, and hotter than any other team has to put up with in the NFL. Even the teams in Jacksonville and Tampa, they ain't that hot. It is hot. So just something I thought about, just sort of throwing it out there. We'll see. Hopefully the Dolphins catch a few more breaks this year with injuries, and they're not going down the home stretch of the season with as many injuries. I don't know. We'll see. Part of it is luck, so I know it's not all to do with the heat. I'm not naive to the situation, but part of it is maybe those players for the Dolphins are putting more wear and tear on their body earlier on than needs to be. All right, that's all for today's show. Everyone check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com. We got all the latest news, articles, videos. We got all the latest up there that you don't want to miss. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads at DolphinsTalk. And folks, please don't forget Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Miami Hurricanes, and the Florida Panthers, who are in the Stanley Cup Finals. And, of course, for all the other professional and college teams in South Florida, looking for the latest jersey or a gift or the newest hat at the market for your favorite South Florida team, Caneswear is the place to go for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. Caneswear has it all. If you're not in South Florida, don't worry. Visit caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they will ship to you, international fans as well. No matter where you are around the world, if you're listening to this, you can shop at caneswear.com. They will ship to you internationally. Caneswear.com. That's caneswear.com. Thank you all for listening. Everyone have a great Monday evening. Have a great start to your Tuesday. If you're listening on Tuesday, we'll talk to you again after a while. Folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.